The next skill that we want to look at is determining the vertex. And when we want to determine the vertex, and it's not just laid out for me in vertex form, what we need to do is complete the square. So just as a quick review on how you complete the square. You put all your x's on one side, move your constants to the other. You factor out your value in front of the x squared if it's not 1. Take half the x term and square it. And when you square it, you have to add it to both sides of the equation. If you factored something else, it must be multiplied in at the end. And then you can simplify it to vertex form or solve, depending on what we're looking for. So right here, I've got f of x is equal to x squared plus 3x plus 2. And my goal is to identify the vertex. The easiest way to do this is to convert to vertex form. So what we're going to do is we are going to convert this equation into vertex form. So I'm going to write this as an equation equal to 0, so then I can complete the square. If you feel comfortable completing the square, leaving it in an f of x function, and then subtracting everything on the same side of an equation, feel free to do that. But I think it's easier to think about the algebra scale if we set up an equation and keep both sides equal. So for now, I'm going to say this f of x piece is really just going to be equal to 0. We're setting up just a generic function. My first goal then is to group the x's together. So that means my x's will be on one side, my constants will be on the other. So x squared plus 3x is equal to negative 2. The next thing I've got to do is I'm going to factor out the value in front of the x squared if it's not a factor of 1. Here we've got a 1 in front, so I don't need to do anything. But in essence, I'm factoring out a 1. Next thing is I'm going to take half of my x term and then square it. And whatever I do on one side of the equation, I have to do it on the other side of the equation. So half of 3 is 3 halves. 3 halves squared is 9 fourths. So I'm going to put a 9 fourths here, and to keep my equation equal, I'm going to put a 9 fourths there. Now remember, if I factor out a constant at the beginning, it must be multiplied on that back piece as well. That's what this 1 here is in parentheses. I just put that there to remind myself that whatever I factor out, I've got to multiply by this quantity. But since it was just a 1 that I factored out, it just ends up being 9 fourths again. So here now I can simplify on my left-hand side. X squared plus 3x plus 9 fourths. That simplifies down to x plus 3 halves, quantity squared. On the right-hand side, I have a negative 2 plus 9 fourths. So this is really x plus 3 halves, quantity squared, is equal to a positive 1 fourth. This negative 2 is really negative 8 fourths. And the negative 8 fourths plus 9 fourths is just 1 fourth. And then finally, we want to get this back equal to 0 so we can put it back into the f of x form. So this is x plus 3 halves, quantity squared, minus 1 fourths is equal to 0. And then I can write that as f of x is x plus 3 halves, quantity squared, minus 1 fourth. So my ultimate goal then was to determine what the vertex is. The vertex is the quantity that is inside the quantity squared here, but the opposite. So it's negative 3 halves, and then my vertical movement would be a negative 1 fourth. There's my vertex.